it is true what I expected. We had 3 last night. This one was here before, but it is true. The teddy bears have had babies. Anyway, that's one of the important parts of meditation, the kindness. That kindness, that softness makes you into a mind which is able to let go. In order to let go, why is it so difficult to let go, especially when there are burdens? Once you realize that many of the things which we do are very burdensome, after a while, why don't you see like a thought of the future? You don't know what's going to happen in the future, so why can't we just let it go? What's going to happen today? Any idea? It's almost impossible to predict. And how wonderful it is when you don't predict. But when you just let the future kind of evolve, and it's always teaching you something, always learning. That's one of the reasons why over in Hong Kong many years ago, they decided to show me there was one street where all the fortune tellers were. And I looked at them and I saw just how thin and hungry they looked. And I thought, if they can't tell their own fortune, how can I trust them to tell mine? Thin. And so a lot of times, why is it we like people to tell fortunes? I remember even Ajahn when I was with him. There was one gentleman who came up to him and said, look, I know just how powerful you are. You've got great meditation. Can you please read the lines on the palm of my hand, he asked. And Ajahn replied, I don't do that. Good monks don't read lines on the palm of your hand. He said, but I've been looking after you, bringing food for you, taking time off work. I can drive you in my car to the station. I've been looking after you. This is the first time I've asked for anything. Can you please tell my fortune? It was such a good argument, because if you help others, isn't it just kind of the correct thing to do? If they help you, you should actually help others. So Ajahn said, okay, for once I will read the lines on the palm of your hand. And this guy was so excited. It's the first and actually the only time Ajahn ever did this. So he gave him his hand. And Ajahn started tracing the lines on the palm of his hand. This man was so excited. Every now and again Ajahn would pause. Imagine how he felt. Other times he'd trace another line. Ooh. And Ajahn said, look, I'm a good monk, I will not lie to you. And he said, yes, I know, but what does it say? The man couldn't help but become really excited. He couldn't wait. So when Ajahn finally finished, Ajahn looked at this man and said, I've read the lines on the palm of your hand. Yes. And I know what your future is going to be. Yes, what is it? Come on, please tell me. He said, sir, your future is uncertain. And Ajahn was not wrong. He was teaching this man some Dhamma. You can't tell exactly what your future is going to be. All you can say is that your future is work in progress. And the best way to make sure you have a good future is to put your attention in the present, right now. And a good example of that, I haven't actually mentioned the story yet, but nevertheless, please know this story so you can help your children, especially when they're about to take exams. This was the method I used to pass my exams at university. And I've taught this to many other schools. I don't know why. Maybe the schools in Penang, maybe it's a bit more difficult than Australia. But I do remember being invited to one of the Jewish schools in Perth because they were having such a difficult time in their final exams at school before they go to university. The prospects were not good. So they invited me. I'm a Buddhist monk, well, I don't mind helping anybody. So I went there and I told them how to do well in exams. It was my story. When I used to do exams at college, once you finished one exam, how did you feel? As soon as I finished one exam, I started thinking about it. What did I do? Was that the correct answer? Could I have added more explanation? Did I understand and do it well? Even though the exam was handed in already, I couldn't change it now. It was done. Why do we keep worrying about the past when it's over? So I could manage, because I'd done some meditation at university for a few years, I could let go of the morning exam, which is already done, good or bad, it's done. You can't change it now. And as soon as I freed my mind of the worry about the morning exam, then I started thinking about the afternoon exam, worrying about the future. And please know that my experience, whenever I used to study at the last minute before an exam, whatever I studied just before the exam, never came up in the examination. Never once. Please follow my advice. Don't study the night before the exam. And so instead I realized what I needed was relax my mind so it has some energy in it. If you're going to pass an exam on, say, quantum physics, you need to have a clear mind. And worrying about it and studying at the last minute doesn't help at all. So I learned, I understood why to let go of the future. Let go of the past, let go of the future. And you know what I was aware of next when I did these exams? This was the final exams at university, I remember. And the next thing I noticed, my body was actually shaking. I never realized I was that nervous. But honestly, this was supposed to be final exams. And my family, the teachers, the friends would always say, these are important. You pass your final exams at a good university and your life will be sweet. You'll have nothing to worry about. So I kind of believed them. That's why I was shaking. I often mention, if only I had known that I was going to become a monk, I would not have worried at all. But I didn't know that at the time. So, I was shaking. Nerves. But you notice how easy it is to calm the body down when you are mindful and in this moment, when you can receive the data from your body without distorting it. It was easy to relax. Even these days, that body awareness, when you are relaxed, at peace, in this moment, it's amazing what your body can tell you. I spend a lot of time teaching how to overcome cancers in one of the societies in Perth. They used to call it the Cancer Support Association. Now they call it Solaris. I remember it was a very successful organization. And a few years ago, it was like a volunteer organization. A few years ago, the state government in Perth decided to donate a heap of money to them so they could build better facilities. And when they opened the new campus, they called me and said, Ajahn Brahm, we're having our opening ceremony this day. Can you come? We want you as a VIP. I said, I can't be a VIP. I can be a VIM. Very important monk. So I went along to the ceremony. And there was another VIP there, real VIP. He was the Premier of Western Australia, the head politician. And one of the things, I don't know if you do this in the temples here in Penang, but one of the things I do with opening ceremonies, we make a bowl of water, bless it, we sprinkle it on the dignitaries. I couldn't resist. I asked the bodyguards of the head of state of Western Australia, is it okay if I soak the Premier? He was the head politician in Western Australia. But nevertheless, I gave him a good soaking. I kind of like a naughty monk sometimes, so I like kind of breaking the rules and testing the boundaries. That's what Ajahn Chah used to do. Now, very rarely did he make any holy water. But once, and I was there, I saw this. There was a major general in the Thai army came to see him. Now, those major generals, they're very dangerous. If they don't like you, you can disappear. So he came up to see Ajahn Chah and had a lot of his associates, ordinary generals, colonels and stuff, all with him. They went up to see Ajahn Chah. And they asked Ajahn Chah, can we have some holy water? And Ajahn Chah said, no, we don't give holy water. The general looked disappointed. He said, please, I'm in a dangerous job. Can I have some holy water? And thank goodness, Ajahn Chah accepted and agreed. He was going to give the general, the major general in the Thai army, some holy water. So he asked the major general, come up closer, bow your head. And that's when I saw Ajahn Chah start to build up the saliva in his mouth. Then the major general bowed. Honestly, that's what Ajahn Chah did. Sometimes I thought he goes too far. On that occasion, I think he did go too far. But he went even further next. Once he had all the spit on this general's head, then he started rubbing it in with his hand. I thought, you're going to get yourself arrested. But the general, when he lifted his head up, you can see him smiling all over. Actually, I don't usually do this to anybody, so this is very special. Oh yeah, I feel so blessed. And then the general went out. So if any of you want any holy water, come up. He got away with it. But anyway, that holy water, blessing water, or reading people's future, Ajahn Chah used to use that as a wonderful way of teaching the Dharma. Your future is uncertain. It's a wonderful thing to know, which means, when are you going to die? Anybody know? It's amazing just how much power you have over your health. And I kind of like that, because this is what I couldn't understand at first. Even one of those monks in Thailand, who was quite renowned, even when I first went to Thailand 50 years ago. His name was Ajahn Tate, who lived on the banks of the Mekong River in the very north of the northeast of Thailand. He had a cancer. He was so well respected that he was being looked after by the King of Thailand. He was paying all the bills. And then apparently one day, those people in the hospital, the doctors and professors, that was actually the major hospital on the other side of the river to the main temple over in Bangkok. And it had a wonderful reputation. One of the reputations which I know from that hospital, there was one morning, one of the doctors there was finishing his shift. So he was in the elevator, going down to the basement car park to get in his car and drive home. And there was a nurse there with him, a witness. And this elevator, this lift, stopped on one of the floors. There was a patient outside the elevator who wanted to get in. And the doctor freaked out. He reached for the close the door button. The patient couldn't walk fast enough, so the elevator closed before the patient could get in. And the nurse was horrified. You're a doctor, a senior doctor in this hospital. Why don't you look after and care for the patients? Let him in. And that is when the doctor, he'd already gone white. I know that patient. He was one of my patients. He died last night. Now over in Thailand, they have this tradition. You know that sometimes we have the white string on our wrists. In the hospitals, if you die, they put a red string on the patient. That red string signifies that that is a deceased person. Have any of you got a red string on your wrist? And so the doctor said to the nurse, didn't you see the red string on his wrist? He's dead, it's a ghost. Are you afraid of ghosts? Well, the doctor was. That's almost like a Thai character, they're all afraid of ghosts. But that's when the nurse said, oh really? I've got a red string on my wrist as well. Does that mean I can't come in the lift? And that was the story the doctor told when they woke him up after he'd fainted in the elevator. The poor doctor, he had a ghost inside the lift and a ghost outside the lift. No escape for him. And I checked out that story. That nurse had died that morning on the way to work. But she still came to work. Those kind of things happen. But anyhow, In that hospital, this monk Ajahn did not die. He said, well, if I'm going to die, there's nothing more the doctors can do for me. If I'm going to die, I want to die in this monastery which I founded. Very peaceful on the banks of the Mekong River. So off he went out to his home monastery to die. He did die after another 25 years. He was a really good meditator. So the cancer went into remission. And because he was such a great doctor, so a great monk, that's why you can understand why. So he could let go of that cancer so easily. As many people do overcome cancers. There's this one guy, I can't help but tell this story. He was not a Buddhist, but he had sinus cancer, big tumor on the bridge of his nose at the top. He couldn't breathe properly. And his doctors have given up on him. Nothing more we can do. So he heard I was going to teach a meditation retreat, like I'm teaching here. So he decided to join up, and he came on my meditation retreat. And he was the guy, he would always breathe very loudly. It was through his mouth. Now, if any one of you did that on this retreat of mine, would you complain? You bet. Had all these questions and answers from all the participants, all the same question mostly. Can you please ask meditators to breathe quietly? It was my fault. I should have let them know what was happening. And then I said, it's my fault, I'm sorry. But that fellow, he's got a big tumor in his sinuses. He can't breathe except through his mouth, and it's noisy. That's the only thing he can do. He's dying. When I said that, I was really impressed with all the Buddhists on this retreat. I never complained again about him making so much noise. You do have compassion and kindness. You only need to be explained why. And so he carried on meditating and making a lot of noise the whole 9 days of the retreat. But it is interesting. So often in my life as a teacher of meditation, it's amazing what happens on the last day of the retreat. That's when you give up trying. You put effort in for 9 days and nothing works. You give up. One of the reasons why, if you haven't achieved enlightenment already, give up. Then there's a good chance you will. You're not interfering, you're not trying. So anyway, the last day, the last meditation, he gave up. And I remember this, I was already in a car, about to leave to go to Sydney Airport to go back to Perth. And this guy came running after me. He said, Ajahn Brahm, please stop for a moment. What's happened? And he said the last meditation he did, during the meditation, he heard a popping sound. I still remember how he said that popping sound. And he could breathe through his nose for the first time in months. His tumor had diminished. He could feel that. And he could breathe now, but only for 1 minute. And then his tumor sort of increased again, blocked his nose. And he was struggling to breathe. He had to breathe through his mouth again. He said this was real. For the first time in many months, he could breathe through his nose, but only for 1 minute. The only thing I could say, because I had to leave, already late to catch the flight, and I said, just carry on. About 3 or 4 months later, when I went to Sydney to give another talk at another place, this guy came up to me and he said this question, which please never ask me. And the question was, do you remember me? I don't want to upset you. So because of that, I have to be honest. And I say, no, who are you? Sometimes if it's a monk, I tell you, oh yes, I remember you. You're the monk whose name I keep forgetting. Anyway, this one, I couldn't recognize him at all. And that's when he announced he was that man. He carried on meditating. At the time, he wasn't a Buddhist. Carried on meditating, and he heard many more popping sounds. And the tumor went into remission. He was free of what the doctors could not cure. And as a result of that, he said, I need to see you just to say thank you. And he said also that for the rest of his life, however many months, years he has, he's going to spend it teaching others how to do the meditation which saved his life. Sadhu, sadhu, that's a way to say thank you. And so it does work. And this Ajahn Tate, that's what he did. He lived another 25 years, became a very powerful teacher. So this meditation has great success in so many areas. And I don't know why, but the cancer especially. So because of that, the future is uncertain, no matter what even doctors say. And so because of that, please respect the meditation and make sure that you realize how important it is. Much more important than predicting the future, or being wealthy, or I don't know what other diseases you can have. The meditation does seem to have a great effect on that, and also a great effect on not worrying or being concerned. Just when you are doing things like exams. So because of that, it has so many benefits. But you start meditating. Do you have any problems with your meditation? Can you feel just so fear-free? This is, again, I never finished the story of passing exams. But I remember once I could calm down the body shaking. I never thought I was a nervous person. But this was final exams. I was kind of nervous. As soon as I calmed that down, the body became still. The next thing I noticed was my brain. My brain was exhausted. It just done a 3-hour exam. I was putting total effort, making sure I did well. I had no energy left. Now, have you ever been at work? You have an important document to create, which will actually make the company successful or make it just unviable. How much energy that takes? Have you ever noticed or looked to see if you have that energy to begin with? A lot of times we don't have that energy to begin with, which is why we get stressed out. You get super tired. And once you get super tired, you go back home, you take it out on your close family members and even your children. It's kind of sad if the other family members and children knew what you were up to. Why? Then they would kind of understand you more. But you're really exhausted. brain-wise. So what I ask you to do, what I did once I could relax my body, was then look at my brain and relax that too. To me, it felt like, that because I'm English, I like tea. And sometimes you have tea bags. And I remember when I first went to Thailand as a young monk, they were very hard to come by, tea bags. So if I had one, and I made myself a cup of tea with a tea bag, I would never throw the tea bag away. I would hang it on an umbrella on one of the spokes, let it dry, and use it again. And usually I got 3 cups of tea from even one tea bag. The other monks thought I was crazy. That's how much I was attached to tea. So anyway, that's what it felt like after I had just done an exam. I was tired, really tired. Like the oomph in the tea bag had been all used up and nothing left. Have you ever felt like that? Mentally exhausted? We do a lot of stressful work sometimes. How can we recover? And my goodness, you should be mindful enough. If you meditate and stop thinking, keep your mind still, and it's not expending any energy, the energy starts building up again. And for me, it's only about 10 or 15 minutes. When I was doing my final exams, the lunch hour which I had, the last 10 or 15 minutes of meditation, it was like having this enormously deep sleep and just coming out with huge amounts of energy. It was beautiful. And honestly, I never realized at the time how I was passing these exams. But the other students who went into the same exam said they were concerned about me, because I was the only student in the afternoon final examinations at Cambridge who was smiling. They thought I was cheating. I kind of was cheating, but in an acceptable way. I was actually having a source of energy and clarity which the other students never knew about. So I did very well. That's how I passed my exams. That's how if you want to have an interview. One of the scariest things which I have to do, maybe some of you may have to do, television interview, live. Have you ever been interviewed on live TV, going nationwide? You make one mistake, such as, you scratch your nose. That's what they focus on. And how do you overcome that? It's obviously you meditate and relax. The other thing which I notice when you relax a lot, you tend to tell funny stories. Life becomes joyful. So if ever I tell funny stories, why? It is because the meditation makes me. It makes it so easy. A good example of that, this coroner was investigating the 3 fatalities. These 3 men had died suddenly, and he could see just the expression on their faces was always with fear. This 3rd guy had a big smile on his face. And so the coroner asked, how did he die? He was struck by lightning. How come he had a smile on his face when he was struck by lightning? Well, he saw the flash and he thought he was having his photograph taken. You know my character for so many years. That's why it's so easy to tell funny stories and jokes. That's one of the reasons why I enjoyed even interviews on live TV. Because I told a few funny stories. I enjoyed myself. And one thing I noticed, if ever any of you are giving public talks, or in front of a TV camera is being recorded, the way to relax is have fun. Those two emotions cannot coexist. If you're having joy and fun, it overcomes any fear. Please remember that. So anyhow, that with the meditation even, are you afraid of meditation? Are you afraid it might work? It'll get you into really amazing states of peace and stillness? Are you? Somebody say no. But the opposite is often the truth. Sometimes you really start to see things disappearing. Sometimes you see these amazing, what we call nimittas in the mind. Beautiful lights. Really beautiful lights. One thing which I'll say about these nimittas, I'll say it again, I'm sure. When the nimittas, these lights in the mind, starts to really get strong, the color of the light is not important. But what is strange about these nimittas, whatever color it is, it's a deeper, purer, more fine version of that color than you've ever seen in the world. So it's like a purple. It's a purer purple than anything you've ever noticed. If it's a yellow, it's almost incandescently yellow. More blue than any blue you've ever seen. That kind of makes it interesting, but also scary. That's why I like to describe these things as much as I possibly can. To take the fear away. There is nothing dangerous about this. There's nothing to fear. It's just weird you haven't experienced this before. But don't worry, it's always really beautiful. In all of the hundreds, thousands of retreats I've taught in my life, and all the people who have been to my retreats, I haven't had one casualty yet. No one has died or complained. Honestly, all those times I've taught meditation, they've all enjoyed it. And they've seen things which, amazing, thank you so much. Cancer's gone. Problems vanished. So these are powerful, they actually work. So because of that, please listen when I say there's only positive, nothing to fear at all. And of course there is one problem, but you don't need to fear it. And that is that, what is it? If you get into this deep meditation, what happens? You lose your hair. You want to renounce. You can't help it. A lot of people go bald after they get into deep meditations. I mean, I don't mean like something physical. You just don't want to be in that world anymore. So anyhow, it's worthwhile doing. So the last time, yesterday when I was teaching meditation, I was just teaching what happens. Okay, you can see the breath going in, you see the breath going out. And the whole of it, the whole body of the breath, from beginning to end. And when you can see that and it calms down, how do you calm down the breath? You don't. You let it calm down. It's a natural process. Don't interfere with it. You know that sometimes I remember some people, because it's very hard for me to travel by myself. Even when a little journey, just, from just here to over there, people want to give me a lift. You know why they want to drive me? Get some more merit. I find it very difficult to walk by myself. Not that I'm afraid of exercise. I want exercise. You don't let me. Even over here in Penang, you don't really have a bus service or an underground train service. You have some buses, but they're not that many. That's why I love going to like a city like London. I said, don't put me in a car. I can use the underground. I know that so well. And the wonderful thing about an underground service, a train service, is you meet other people. That's part of my job, to be seen. The Buddha said that, go an arms round. Let the villagers, townspeople see you. So that's what I used to do over in London. And I had some wonderful experiences. One of those experiences, I was on the train. It wasn't like the rush hour, really full. It was like, kind of getting full. It was in the early morning, and many people were going to work. And this lady came and sat next to me. And then she looked at me and said, are you a Buddhist monk? I said, yes. A real Buddhist monk? I said, yeah. She wanted to ask me some questions about Buddhism. One of the questions she was really interested in was like reincarnation, rebirth. He said, do you believe in rebirth? Of course I do. That's part of Buddhism. What exactly is it? She said. And that's when I told the story to her, which had happened a few months earlier on one of the retreats which I was leading. We get many different people on our retreats. In this particular case, he was an Italian who was living in Perth, and he told me that when you meditate, sometimes you get some really interesting visions in your mind. And he said he had a weird vision. In the vision in his mind, he saw a strand of spaghetti. And he said, I realize that's kind of who I am. He said, it's weird, I know. But how can you identify so deeply with the strand of spaghetti? And the next meditation, he saw a piece of macaroni. And he could see that was him. What's happening? Am I going crazy? And I told him, you're not going crazy. I figured it out pretty quickly. He said, what you're doing, Italian Buddhist, you're remembering your past lives. Past lives. When I said that in a London Underground train where people are going to work, have you ever been on the London Underground? All the people are either reading newspapers or these days checking their iPhones, and they don't make even eye contact with you. But now I looked up, and half the train were looking at me, giggling. The other half were looking at me, groaning. But at least I had all their attention that time. You should notice how people pretend not to look and listen, but they do. That's one of the wonderful times I really have, when you go a little bit further than other monks do, and you look at them, talk to them, and enjoy their company. It's a great way of spreading Buddhism. I don't know about telling silly jokes, but it makes it a little bit more attractive. So anyhow, that's kind of what we do. But as you start to meditate, you get to the point where, you can watch every breath very easily, without any effort. It happens naturally. That's one of the most important parts of this. You're sitting here, nothing else to do, watching your breath come in and go out. And your awareness of the breath gets deeper and bigger. You miss less, you can see much more of it. And now the next thing which happens, I did mention this, but now I'm going to go into more detail. You start to experience in this breath really happily. It becomes a delightful breath. I used to call it beautiful breath. But beauty is more like to do with sight. This is to do with the feeling of the breath. Oh my goodness, it's really joyful. It's gorgeous. It goes in. Ah, that was nice. Goes out. Oh, that's even nicer. It gets happiness with the in and out breath. You don't decide to do that, but you decide to let it happen if it does. You don't interfere with it. And that breath, when it gets delightful, I've often called that a pivot point of meditation. At this point, you're letting go enough that something, what people call boring, just watching your breath. You mean you spend hours just watching your breath? Get a life, Ajahn Brahm. It's much more interesting things in life just to watch a breath go in and go out. And I say, no way. You haven't experienced the delightful, beautiful breaths. They're gorgeous. And that's why you can sit here for hours sometimes. You're enjoying every moment. And it is good that, sometimes when I go and give interviews or something, and I come back into here before I go for somewhere for lunch, to see you still sitting here. 2 or 3 people left here. You're not going away. You're enjoying your meditation, I hope. If that happens, please enjoy it to the max. That's where the body is now being secondary to the mind. The mind is getting enjoyable. You can see it for long periods of time. Piti, Sukha, we experience both of them. Well, as I mentioned, I think the first day. Why? Why does an ordinary breath appear to be so gorgeous, so full of happiness? It is because you are now seeing it through your mind, not through your sense of touch. Remember the ways you experience the world? The Buddha always taught about 6 senses. The first 5 senses, sight, sound, smell, taste, physical touch, are usually not that enjoyable, believe it or not. The mind is super enjoyable. And so once you get to that stage where the mind is enjoying every breath, it's gorgeous. Usually you see it as the breath becomes gorgeous, but then the gorgeousness, the joy, the piti, sukha, the bliss. You've heard me say that before, blissing out. Why do I say things like that? Sound like you're taking some drugs. It's better than drugs. This is totally legal, honest. It's nothing which is going to mess your body around. But to heal it, really inner happiness gets very strong. When you start to get that inner happiness, the 8th stage of anapanasati, it's like calming down the inner happiness. In other words, so it maintains itself. You're really enjoying yourself now. And if you get to that stage of meditation, don't disturb it. Sometimes you think, I've got to investigate it. Why is it happening? What should I do next? The answer is nothing. These states where your mindfulness is really getting strong, you don't have to make effort to remember. The memory of these states is natural, powerful, unforgettable. So you don't have to try to remember. Number 2 is what you do is just leave it alone and see where it goes. Once that piti sukha starts to arise, the joy, the happiness gets stronger and stronger. You really start to bliss out. And when that happens, it might be lunchtime. Honestly, what you're experiencing is so much more joyful than lunch. And if, and I do this as a promise to you, if you experience that piti sukha and it's too powerful for you, you can't leave it and go to lunch, so you miss your lunch. And after missing your lunch, you tell me honestly, it was because the piti sukha was too strong. You're watching the breath and it's gorgeous. Please, I will arrange for somebody, Chapa or somebody, to go and buy you whatever lunch you want, even in the afternoon. I don't want you to ever be scared of going hungry, especially after you've done the right thing and had a beautiful lunch of bliss. So because of that, enjoy it. What happens next? What happens next is when that bliss starts to get strong, it gets much stronger than the breath. So after a while you can't experience the breath anymore, not even a knowing of the breath. You go into the bliss states. And that first bliss state is seeing a beautiful light in your mind. This is what we call the nimittas. You just experience it. Don't be afraid of it. Don't try and control it. The two biggest problems for the nimittas is fear and excitement. These are powerful states. You can't feel the body. The body's disappeared. You can't hear, you can't see, you can't taste anything. Seeing a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful light in your mind. It's satisfying immensely. Because of that, you separate from your body. But you are perfectly safe. I told a few of those stories. The story I'm going to tell now was of this Indonesian monk. I don't mind telling this story because this Indonesian monk was very old when it started and he's passed away now. The reason I don't like telling it when a person's still alive is because you go and bother him. And that's not really a good thing. But he told me, I used to go to Indonesia a lot. Actually, there's some Indonesians over there from Medan. But yes, but this one was over in Java. He decided he wanted to be a rishi, just to do meditation, not to ordain as a monk. So he found a nice place in central Indonesia, still jungle at that time. He found a quiet place, sat down and meditated. And he described to me how he felt, what happened. Once he started getting comfortable, he had his eyes closed. He said, this is how he said it. He said he saw this star in the night sky come right, had his eyes closed, come right towards him. And he said, I remember his words because they were strange. He said he married that star. English was his second language. He united with it. And he stayed in like a state of extreme happiness for a long time. He did not have a clock or a watch. He was by himself in the jungle. And he said when he came out of that meditation, he hadn't got a clue how long, but he did notice the jungle where he was sitting had changed. There was a lot of destruction. When he eventually got up and went to the village, he asked the villagers, and they could not believe that he was sitting meditation in that spot because there was a flash flood there. And he soon worked out that where he was sitting he would have been underwater for many days. Did he even feel the water? Did he die without any air? Absolutely not. It's his first deep meditation, where you become invulnerable. You can't die in those deep meditations. And so he came out afterwards. The villagers were really amazed that he could survive like that. Eventually he became a monk and started teaching meditation. I met him a couple of times in Bangkok. And straight away, I don't know if you've ever met people who really are powerful. I don't mean their shoulders are broad like Arnie Schwarzenegger. Much more powerful than that. Their mind is powerful. And to tell you one of the stories about him, one of my friends in Bangkok, she used to be a princess. She was the daughter of one of the old kings of Thailand who got exiled to London. And so she went over there as well. She was very rebellious. And she married this guy who went to the same high school as I did in London. That's how we got to know each other. And, she was, because of the Western monks could understand her more, that's why she became a very strong Buddhist. And once she was a strong Buddhist, she went to the classes taught by this Indonesian monk. And this is an interesting, true story for you. I know this woman, and there's no way she could lie. She went to these classes on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon in Wat Buwan, in the middle of Thailand. And halfway through the meditation class, she felt there was something a bit eerie. She opened her eyes. And that's when she saw this Indonesian monk looking at one of the other meditators, with his eyes open. And from his two eyes, there's laser lights going into this meditator's body. You could really see them. It was like, some movie, but this was real. A real psychic power. This monk was bathing this lady in the laser lights from his eyes. Because I know that woman and I know that monk, that was absolutely true. No exaggeration. The monk with laser eyes. If that happened to you, what would you do? What she did, she got so scared, terrified. She got up, I don't think she even bowed, and she left that group and never went back. And that's a true story. Sometimes we say, Ajahn Brahm, can you just show us one psychic power? Just one. I promise I won't run away. You do. These things are really, really, when they're real, you see them and they're not fake, they are scary. Even beautiful nimittas you see in your mind, they're scary at first. After a while, they're just so blissful, you think, why not? There's one monk I know, I think you know what I mean. There's one monk I know very well, that when he was meditating, it was like getting a state of meditation, beautiful nimittas, a lot of happiness. And it's like you see the next step, the jhana. And the jhana was so beautiful. It looked gorgeous. But it's a bit too much. It's a bit too much for me, thought this monk. And so what this monk did was say, no. too much. But then it was so beautiful. He thought, why not? No, I can't. Why not? It's too beautiful. It looks too powerful, too dangerous for me. And then, eventually, that monk thought, why not? And so went for it. I'm not going to tell you who that monk was. But nevertheless, that's an experience which sometimes happens. It's worthwhile being courageous. Go for it. No bad things have ever happened to you. Just beautiful things. Lovely limiters. Have a wonderful time. Perfectly safe. So anyhow, when those limiters come up, that's the, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th stages of Anapanasati. They say you can see the citta, the mind. Not the body anymore, that's the beautiful light which appears in the mind. That's how the mind looks to you. And then you brighten or stabilize that nimitta. So it just stays there, gorgeous. And the next thing which happens to you is that you make it still, so it doesn't go anywhere. And that's when it really builds up its energy. You're looking directly at the thing we call the mind. And then you release that nimitta, and that's when you enter the jhanas. That's the 12th stage of Anapanasati. And you enter those jhanas. Sometimes you enter those jhanas for long periods of time. Like the Indonesian monk for many days. What if you've got some business to do? Such as, you've got an air flight back to Perth within the next Monday. Should I miss the flight? What about the visa? I'll get into trouble. So, what you do, you make a resolution before you enter the jhana. Say, I must come out by Sunday evening. Or whatever. You make that resolution and it always works. The mind has its own clock. You just need to tell it and it comes out. It's weird, but it's true. So you don't need to worry at all. You're always really healthy. And you're always afterwards, no matter what you have to do, you have more energy than you've ever had before. Even if you're old and sick. Oh, I want to go on the 100-meter sprint in the Olympic Games. You feel you can do that because you've got energy not just from the body, but from the mind. So anyway, this is what happens with those deep meditations. And each one of you can do it. Most of you won't. But don't think that it's because there's some insurmountable obstacle. It's only you don't because you don't trust it. You have fear. Or you try too much. You need to let go as much as you can. Put down the cup, and that water becomes still for such a long time. Whatever is still disappears. Your body disappears. Your even nimitta disappears, and you go deep inside of it, where it's just blissed out. Thought goes. You think, if I'm not thinking, how can I tell what's happened? Because after you emerge from these deep meditations, it's so easy to remember them. You just kind of ask, what happened? And you have like the photographs or video inside your mind of everything which happened, and it's accurate. That's why if it is, you want to find out who you were in the past life, you just ask. then you'll see those visions. One thing, I mentioned this before about past lives. Sometimes a few disciples have asked me, this thing actually works, I don't make these things up. They asked me, when they remembered their past life, it was very, very unpleasant. They remembered their past life. The earliest part of your past life is when you died. And for many people, dying is an unpleasant experience. That's where they told me, Ajahn Brahm, please, let everybody know that if you do get the past life memory, the closest to this life of your death, please don't suffer. Just ask yourself, earlier, please. And you flip back before you died, which is much more pleasant. And so you don't get put off thinking you have to experience pain and suffering. It makes it more attractive. And then also, you know for yourselves, yeah, you did live before. And you can check it out as well, which is the fun part. Even in Penang, we keep records. And is there a library where they keep records of people who lived before? Your grandparents, great-grandparents? Can you check out what their names were? Where they got married? Who their parents were? So you can remember those in the meditation. You go and check out whether it's true or not. And that blows your mind when you see the name of your mum, where she was from, why she died. That was 100 years ago. It's really cool. Okay, I always like to finish by about 9:30, but I always need to see if there's any questions. So I've got 5 minutes for questions. Sorry? One on the side table. Okay, this one jumped the queue, fair enough. I have faith in Dhamma because I witness how it changes my life. But I have a hard time believing things like Deva, superpower of Buddha. I only find those superstitions. Will they block me from getting enlightened? Kind of it can do, because if you don't believe in them, please keep the open mind. Maybe there are, maybe they're not. And please challenge them. Remember what I did did I tell that story about the bottles of Pepsi? Yeah, okay. I don't mind going over time. But once when I was on Tudong, that's when you leave monastery, go walking about in Thailand, I was in the area of Phupan, in central Thailand. It had not been developed at that time. So as I was walking, I ran out of water. It was a very hot day. I was dehydrated, and I noticed my feet were starting to swell, like dehydration or sunstroke. So I realized I needed to find some water or something to drink pretty quickly. And as I came to a ridge in the mountains, I saw in the valley there was a village. And I was been in Thailand for about 5 or 6 years by that time. I knew how those villages were. I knew that one of those houses in the village would be a general store. And in that general store they would have things like kerosene, matches, rope, candles, cigarettes, and they'd always have some Pepsi. And that's what they used to give monks to drink all the time, cold bottles of Pepsi. I used to drink that over in Thailand, but I haven't drunk any of that in Australia. And I don't really want it. It was the way of rehydrating monks over in Thailand. And I'd also remembered a story from the Buddha's teachings, how devas can help good people survive difficult situations. So at the ridge in the mountains, my science was still very strong. So I made a resolution. If there are heavenly beings, devas, can they give me a Pepsi, please? I was a good monk. I was doing what monks are supposed to do, traveling, living simply, one meal a day, and also meditating a lot, living really simply. Everything I owned, I was carrying with me. And said, can I please have a Pepsi, just so I can finish the journey? And so I got into the village, and I walked, like walking on I'm supposed to talk about walking meditation. Walking meditation, you don't look to the left, you don't look to the right, you look a body length in front of you. You put your attention just on your feet walking. When you reach the end of the path, you turn around and come back again. So I was doing like walking meditation through the village. And I saw through the corner of my eye the general store. I never stopped, I never looked up, I never said anything. I just carried on walking. As I carried on walking, after about passing that general store, I had the thought, I'm not going to get a Pepsi. I thought the devas don't exist. I'd asked and challenged them. You know what happened next? Not making any sound, I heard someone running behind me. And when they were running behind me, they shouted out the words, Nimon Krap. You know what those words mean? That was always what Thai people do to make an invitation to you. Nimon Krap. And as I turned around, I saw the man running was holding something in his hand. An open bottle of Pepsi Cola with a straw in it. No joking. And then, when I kind of was surprised, then another woman came running after him, shouting at me, Nimon Ka. That's how a woman invites a monk for something. She had a second bottle of Pepsi Cola open. And then another man was behind her. Nimon Ka. And honestly, I could not believe this. 9 people each offered me an open bottle of cool Pepsi Cola. And I'm not exaggerating. I've told that story for years. And I sat down on a bench and I put the 9 bottles of Pepsi Cola in front of me. If any of you know Thai culture, in Chinese culture, 8 is the most important number. In Korea, 7 is the most important number. In Thailand, 9. 9 is a lucky number. And 9 bottles of open Pepsi. I could not believe it. And I just admitted, okay, heavenly beings, you went that extra bit for me to prove of your existence. And I drank just a little bit, maybe an inch of each bottle of Pepsi Cola. That was a lot. And I gave the rest of the Pepsi Colas to the kids who were hovering. And from that day on, I always knew there are such things as heavenly beings. If you're a good person, you want to check, are there heavenly beings? Make a resolution like that and see how it works. I live a very interesting life. I was trained as a physicist. I won't believe things unless you actually see them, experience them. There are heavenly beings. And they love helping a good person. If you're trying to get on a good retreat, and they say, sorry, all the spaces are taken, go into like a shrine room or something, there's a Buddha, and starts, heavenly beings, please help. It's amazing how many times they do. Okay, that's one question. We might be here till 11 o'clock before I finish. During my sit, after 30 minutes, suddenly feel absorption strike me. And I feel the vibrations of my body suddenly stop. Mind is steady, can watch body and breath easily, but thoughts are still there. Just want to be taken. Won't be taken away by the thoughts. Am I in the right path? I think you asked this yesterday. But anyway, if it really is absorption, you go into these beautiful nimittas, they're gorgeous. And when you really go into those nimittas, you cannot feel your body. This is one of the amazing things about these absorptions, the jhanas. If somebody touched you, you wouldn't be able to feel it. Or like this one guy, let me go another story. This one guy, he was a meditator at home, and on a Sunday afternoon, there's nothing on TV, so he told his wife he's going into his bedroom to meditate. He usually meditates half an hour, 40 minutes max. This was over an hour. He hadn't come out of the bedroom. His wife went in there to check on him and found he was sitting perfectly still. Too still. He wasn't even breathing. She freaked out, called 000, which is the emergency line in Australia. What's the emergency number here? 999. Okay. And so the ambulance came within minutes. And the medics checked him, could not even find any pulse, let alone heartbeat, let alone any breath. So they put him into the back of the ambulance as quick as they could. His wife went with him. They went to Sir Charles Gardner Hospital in Perth. And when they took him there, the medics checked him, could not find any pulse or any heartbeat or any brain activity. They put all these machines on him, all flat lines. The fortunate part of this, the doctor on duty that afternoon, his parents had migrated to Australia from India. And he'd known his parents telling these stories about Indian yogis who could suspend their life activities and go into deep meditation. And he'd heard his wife say that he was meditating before this happened. So he decided not to send him down to the morgue. Good decision. Usually he would have. There's no heartbeat, no brain activity. Most things said he was dead. But when I talked to his wife, the one thing which was different than being dead was that he was warm. And if any of you want to check this, I think it's in the Chulawaitara Sutta. The difference between a dead person and someone who's meditating deeply. The dead person's body is cold. The meditator is still warm. Please remember that. If ever you see me sitting here and I'm not breathing, and you take my pulse and there is none, don't cremate me yet. Just temperature of my body, if it's still warm, I'm just meditating deeply. So anyway, the doctor thought, let's give him a chance. There's nothing else to do that afternoon. It's a quiet afternoon. So he gave him defibrillators. I know one person once said, that can't be right. They don't do defibrillators when you've had like a heart attack in bed. They use what is that injection of, adrenaline or something. But this is those old days. They put these pads on your chest, pass electric current, and make you, move up above the table. They're very powerful, giving shock therapy, yeah. So anyhow, that's what they did, according to his wife, many, many, many times. Nothing worked, still flat lines everywhere. Until he decided to come out of his meditation. That's what he told me. What happened? Someone decided to come out. And as soon as he came out and opened his eyes, I'm in a hospital. I was in my bedroom. What's happening? The doctor was really stunned. So was his wife. She was so happy. And then the doctor gave him a full examination. And after giving him a full examination, could find absolutely nothing wrong with him. And so he said, I'm not even going to keep you overnight. Just go home. And he walked home with his wife after being dead for a few hours. But not dead, he was just in deep meditation. And I did ask him, during that time that, you were in this deep meditation, how did you feel? Blissed out. Was there anything unpleasant about that experience? He said, oh yes. Could you feel the defibrillators? No, I didn't feel anything. It was only on the way home. The most terrible experience was having my wife scold me. Don't you ever do that again. You were blissed out, but I was worried sick. I thought you were dead. And that's an honest description of what happened on that occasion. This has been my life, teaching deep meditation, having these wonderful stories. If that guy could do it, he was a lay person. You can as well. If you start getting close and the meditation gets very peaceful and joyful, start blissing out, please tell the people you live with what to do. Otherwise it freaks them out, and that's not fear. That's not kindness. There's only one more question. When keeping right is more than... When is keeping right more than the chicken and duck issue? But fairness, ideology, welfare, do we still give up the fight for harmony purpose? Sometimes it's nice to not upset other people. You may be right. They just think you're proud and arrogant. Are there heavenly beings? Someone asked that question. The last thing I'll ever do, yes there are, come on, have confidence, believe me. But that's not as powerful as giving you a way to find out for yourself. What is right, what is wrong? You can find that out. This is a way to do it. Be mindful enough. You can feel what right is emotionally like. You do something which is right, it inspires you. It uses wonderful, beautiful emotions. Other people sometimes don't understand you. Don't use logic, because logic can be twisted. And I know that as, go to a good university. You can argue the truth of anything if you've got power of words, and vocabulary is very large. But there's sometimes some arguments, they seem to be logical, but afterwards you feel them. That doesn't feel right. Trust those feelings, those intuitions. Because those intuitions often include hidden memories of past lives, which you cannot access clearly. They still have made an imprint that some things are just wrong. You can't explain why. Later on in life you find, yes, they are wrong. Is that okay? What was there any questions in the box? Any questions from the floor before we start interviews? Yes. Okay. Yes. Because they're much smarter than men. He established the order of nuns at that time. And there was. Yes. And many of them were fully enlightened. Yes. Have a look, there's these Buddhist texts called the Therigatha. The Therigatha is the verses of the monks who became enlightened. Many of them. Once they became fully enlightened, they wrote little histories about themselves, stories, what happened and why. And there's also the Therigatha, the verses of the enlightened bhikkhunis, nuns. And they are very, very interesting. One of those is my favorite bhikkhuni from those stories, Patachara. Patachara was the individual who ran away from her home to get married to the person she loved. And then eventually she became pregnant and had a child. And she thought that once I have a child, it would be much easier for me to introduce my husband and have some harmony with my parents again. But then she got pregnant with another child, so she had 2 children. And the second child was born on the way to visit her parents. And because of that, she had 2 children to look after. Her husband was a very good guy, but he was like low caste. But anyway, he was such a good guy. He went to try and find some wood to make a fire to keep his wife and 2 children, one just born, warm. And as he picked up a piece of wood, there was a snake inside. And the snake bit the hand of the husband, and he died. So Patachara was left mourning her husband and with 2 young kids. And they came to the river which they had to cross, and it was swollen. And so she realized she could not take both kids across at the same time. So she told her oldest kid to wait, by the bank of the river. She'll take the young kid over first, then wade back across and bring the older kid later. Which is what she did. She left the older kid on the bank of the river, and then she took the young kid just born to the other bank, and she put the other kid on the bank of the river, and then she was wading back for her older kid, and then she noticed an eagle swoop down and take her baby away. And basically she turned around, she tried to scare the eagle away by waving her arms and shouting at it. the older son thought, oh, my mummy is calling me to start crossing. So seeing one kid being taken away by an eagle to certain death, the other kid wading into the water and got taken away by the current. In the same day, she lost her husband and 2 children. And if that wasn't enough to drive you crazy, then she was wandering towards the village and she asked one of the people she met, these 2 lay people, her mum and dad, how are they? I said, they used to be quite healthy, but last night there was a very fierce storm why the river was swollen and they got killed in that storm. So this lady, Patachara, lost her mother, her father, her husband and 2 kids on the same day. That drove her crazy. So she was wandering around not knowing who she was, where she was and what she was doing. Totally out of her mind. And that's when she wandered in to, I think it was the Jetavana monastery in Savatthi. And so as she wandered in, she was so mad and crazy, she dropped all her robes. She wandered in naked. Imagine a naked woman who was crazy, just opening the door and walking into this hall. Young, naked woman. What would you do? You say, look, get out of here. We're holding a meditation retreat. You've got to dress properly to come in here. And so that's what many of the people said. And the Buddha saw her and said, stop. Let her in. And so one of the monks took off one of his robes to wrap around her. And then the Buddha taught her the Dhamma. She became a bhikkhuni eventually. And she told how she became fully enlightened. She was watching a candle burning and meditating on the light of a candle. But then there was a window was open and a gust of air blew the candle out. And she realized it's like the mind. The mind is sustained by causes. One of them is like heat. If somebody blows that away, the mind stops, ceases forever. And that was how Patachara became the Arahat. Patachara. Not an ordinary bhikkhuni. Because remember when I first read the Therigatha, it said all of these nuns, they were good meditators, but then they said they're practicing sometimes for years. And then this teacher came along. Within weeks, they were fully enlightened. And I was wondering, who was this teacher? He looked up and it was Patachara. She's one of the greatest teachers who existed in the time of the Buddha, a bhikkhuni, who was a cause for so many other Buddhist nuns becoming fully enlightened. And that's pretty accurate. They were in the time of the Buddha. They kind of died out. We've now resuscitated them. Next thing we want to make sure they get to the same level of sainthood that there was in the time of the Buddha. Starting. You're living in historic times. For years there were no bhikkhunis. Now there are. And they're growing. I get inspired by that. What I say is accurate. Any other comment or question? Yeah? Yeah, I didn't hear your question clearly, but nevertheless you're talking about power of truth. That's when you make a resolution and say that, a good example, that now I've been a good practitioner, and by the power of truth, may this cough or this disease disappear for a while. Or like we often do in Bodhinyana Monastery, this time of year, December, January, February, is our fire season. And sometimes you get a fire comes to the boundary of a monastery, and we do an asseveration of truth to stop the fire. And it works. Sometimes it's weird, even the bhikkhunis at Dharmasara, there's a very heavy fire just in the north of the monastery. And they evacuated, they were told to evacuate, it was too dangerous to stay. And when they went back and they did an investigation, did the fire come in or what happened? All they found was just one burnt leaf in the corner of their monastery. That's all. The fire came to the edge of the monastery and no further. That's what asseverations of truth do. Whether it was because the asseveration of truth the fire never came in, I don't care. The important part was it didn't come in. I love doing those things. I was a scientist before, and I think there's no other logical reason why it doesn't come in. Asseveration of truth. What good have you done in the past year? If you've done some good and there's somebody in big trouble, you say, by the asseveration of truth, may this person recover. You wouldn't believe how powerful that is. Even Angulimala, serial killer. And the Buddha told him when he saw a woman having a very, very difficult birth, go up to her, make the asseveration of truth. Since my becoming an Arya, streamer basically, I haven't harmed any living being. When I read that, this is Angulimala. He's been a serial killer. How can he say he hasn't harmed any living being? Since he became at least a stream winner, or after the Buddha ordained him, he hasn't harmed anything. And that's such a powerful statement. You can change from being a serial killer to being totally harmless. And so, that difficult birth that lady was about to have was easy. Those asseverations of power and truth actually work. The more amazing they are, just the more effective they are. What have you done in your life which has been surprising? Even irrational, it shouldn't have happened. Use asseverations of truth. They can't harm, and often they really help. Make sense? Okay. Shall we start the interviews? They'll be shorter than usual because I finish at 11 o'clock. 5 o'clock? 4 interviews. Okay. Okay. So just 4. Please don't have any more people put their name down. So I'll go into the room now to begin the interviews. Right now, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. For those of you carrying on meditating here, please get up, stretch your legs, make sure that your body feels comfortable. You've been sitting down a long time. And just do a bit of stretching exercises and then go and sit down if you want to. Look after your body. Care for it.